I am using the new QuickBooks version 2019, which just recently came out. If you're on an older version, unless it's older than 2015 or 16, your screen is going to look very similar to mine. And everything I'll be doing should be similar to what you're doing. If you have questions as I'm going along, as Corey said, please feel free to unmute your phone or put something in the question box, and I will be more than happy to answer them. So one of the questions I received was, is there a way to put your statements into a download instead of always printing the document? Well, if you're doing invoices or statements, you can. When you're doing your printing, all you need to do is, I will move my print box over, is print to a PDF file. If you don't have PDF, you might have like a Microsoft XPS. But if you print to one of those kind of PDF writers, and I believe you can get them free on the internet, a PDF writer will put them onto your computer where you can store them and save them into more or less on your hard drive so you can access them when you need it. And you could set up some kind of file that you put all your statements and or invoices in. Again, when you create invoices, you can do the same thing. I'm just going to go back one and look at an invoice. When I go to print this, I print my invoice. And as I'm bringing over my print window, bring it over here. Okay. And my print window, there we go. And again, here I can print it to a PDF printer. I've got different PDF printers on my computer because we have many offices and I seem to have access to a lot of those different offices. So just use your PDF or XPS printer and you should be able to print right to your I got another question on what's the best way to match deposits to accounts. Sometimes QuickBooks matches the bank deposits to the wrong account. And I'm guessing that occurs when you are receiving payments. I'm just going to bring up a quick report here so I can enter a payment. So I'm going to look at Ecker Design because they owe me some money. And when I'm entering a payment, say my payment is $4,100, you can see that QuickBooks automatically wants to apply it to these two invoices. I can just uncheck if I don't want it applied that way. Or instead of having QuickBooks automatically apply it, there is a way in the preferences that you can actually apply it yourself. So in that case, what you want to do is go into View on the top menu bar, Edit on the top menu bar, go down to Preferences, and here's the Preferences window. From Preferences, if you go to Payments, on the company preferences, here's where you can uncheck Automatically Apply Payments. And once that's unchecked, then you're allowed to apply the payments automatically each time you get a payment from a customer. So that's how you can get it to uncheck that preference. What you can also do when they receive payments, maybe the payment went to the wrong invoices and you want to recalculate those or reapply those. Let me just find one that has a couple on them. Okay, so here's a payment from Williams Abraham. What I can do is I can actually uncheck these and check which invoice I want the payment to go against. So you can go through on prior payments and reallocate that payment just by unclicking and checking invoices that you want to be paid from that payment. There's a couple different ways that you can go about that. Let's see, I got another question on how to generate accounts receivable reports to send to the customers and what different report options are available. Well, with QuickBooks, there's a lot of different reports that are out there. So if I look under my customers and receivable reports, there's a lot of canned reports that come with QuickBooks. One thing you want to do as an accounts receivable report to send to your customers, if you want to give them a report, say, of all their outstanding invoices, then maybe you don't want to do a receivable report. Maybe you might want to do a statement. And what the statement does is you can list all open transactions as of a certain date or from a statement period. I'm just going to do all open transactions as of a statement date, and I'm just going to choose one customer. I'm going to show the invoice items, the details. So each invoice that you send to that customer is going to be detailed on the statement. When you're doing statements, I always check, don't create statements with a zero balance, because then you're either just wasting paper or wasting computer space. So I'm just going to preview this statement. Oh, I got to choose my customer first, and I know I have some outstanding in Ecker Design, and I'm going to preview this. I'll bring the screen over. So now what it shows me, I'm going to click in the detail. So I invoiced Ecker Design on 11/30 for these different line items. Then I invoiced them again on 12/15 for these different line items. It's the total of the invoice, and it shows me the invoice numbers, how much they owed me, and the balance that's due. So instead of a report, you might want to generate a statement for that customer. And by doing the statement and checking the box that says show invoice item details, it will show every detail from that invoice. If I don't show the invoice item details, what it'll show you on that statement is just the invoice number, when it was due, and the amount of the invoice and the balance due. A couple reports you could run to send with your send to your customers. I'm just going to look at my receivable reports, and I'm going to look at a customer balance detail. What it's going to do is it's going to give me the detail of each and every customer. Let's say I just want the detail of Edward Blackwell's information. To get just Edward Blackwell, what I can do is customize that report. Here's the customized window. I'm going to filter the report. I'm going to choose that I want to filter it by name. And in the name box, I'm going to say Blackwell. Click OK, and I have a report that just has all of Edward Blackwell's activity. If I only want it for the current year, I can change my date. In this case, I'm using the sample company, so I'm going to do a detail from 2022. And then it will give me the detail from 2022 for just that one customer. So that's how you can get detail by the customer. It shows you a payment and invoice. So if a customer is saying, well, I didn't receive this, or I didn't record my payment, here's a report that you could give them the detail of all their activity. I think I have a question here. Hang on a second. Try to get there. Somebody is on the online version and asking about the settings of the online version, and we're actually not going to be discussing the online version today. We may have a webinar in the future regarding the online version, but right now it would be too difficult to go back and forth between the two versions. So for the person, for Tammy who's asked the question, if you'd like, you can call back in and or send me your information and I can get you the information, include your phone number, which I probably have, but I can get a hold of you outside of this webinar and answer the questions there. Let's see. Another question I got was to filter by classes. Company breaks down their invoices by classes, and is there a way to sort the open invoice report by classes with subtotals other than exporting to Excel? Well, what I would do in that case is you're looking at the open invoice report. So under your reports, customers and receivables, if I look at my open invoices report, the company I'm in right now does use classes, as you can see in this column. Got classes for maintenance and landscaping, design. What you want to do is make sure that everybody has a class associated with it. And what I would do in this case is I would again filter the report by class. So you can see some of these don't have classes, but if I'm going to do this report and I want to see my open invoices by class, I'm looking at my open invoices and I see a total of 33,434.86. So if I want to see just my specific classes, I'm going to customize the report. And again, I can filter by class and choose each class. If I want to see all my open invoices for my design class, here are all those invoices. And what I can do, instead of running this time and time again, each month I want to look at my open invoices, I can actually memorize this report. What I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to customize the report. I've already filtered it by class. I'm just going to customize my header and footer, say open invoices for my design class. So now that's going to be part of my header. I'm going to memorize that report. I'm going to call it Open Invoices by Design. I could save that in, say, my customer grouping. Say OK. Then I can customize my report again, filter it by, choose a different class, landscaping. I'm going to customize that report again. Now I have all my landscaping. And I'm going to change my header, my title, to landscaping. Memorize that report. When I click memorize, if I'm already in a memorized report, it's going to say, do I want to replace my original? Well, in this case, I want to create a new one. I'm going to say new. And I'm going to say it's my open invoice report for landscaping. That in with my customers. Say OK. And now what I can do, if I want to run those reports at once, I can process multiple reports. I can look at my report group for my customers, and I can just run the reports for Open Invoices Design and Open Invoices Landscaping. I can change my date range right here and display those two reports. And what you want to do is make sure that when you're doing this, you want all of your reports to be able to equal the actual open invoice reports. So that way you can make sure you're picking up all the reports that have classes associated with them. If you don't need the ones without classes, then I wouldn't worry about those. So I hope that answers your question. If not, let me know. Let's see. I do have a question on how do I clean up AR of things from past years. That's a really good question. And Marla asked that question. Hi, Marla. I work with Chris very much, and I understand your question. And what you want to do is when you're looking at your AR aging, sometimes you've got some old AR that's sitting out there. Maybe it has a zero balance. Maybe it's got pennies out there, and you just want to get rid of those. Or maybe your accountant has done an entry that is sitting out there with the wrong customer associated with it. First of all, if your accountant made an entry that affected your accounts receivable, in QuickBooks you have to give a customer name to any entry, any journal entry that involves accounts receivable. So if I'm doing a journal entry, I'll just show you one. And I'm going to hit accounts receivable. And let's say I'm going to write off Tracy Stinson's balance because I can see her name right here. I'm going to credit my accounts receivable. And then I go down to the next line and I put in bad debt. When I try to save that, I'm going to get a warning message that the transactions must include a customer. So if your accountant is writing off any old accounts receivable, what you want to do is make sure you get a list of those receivables, and I can show you a way to write them off in an easier way than a journal entry. So in order to write off a bad debt, what you want to do is, first of all, to get rid of pennies, it's probably one of the easiest things to do. So I've got a balance out here of 3 cents. What I can do is go into customers and receive payments. And I don't care about collecting this 3 cents. I just want it to go away. So I'm going to say received from Bob Crenshaw. I'm not going to put any payment amount because I'm not actually receiving cash. That's going to stay blank. So I can see here that he made a partial payment against one of his invoices for a finance charge. But I want to get rid of this 3 cents. So what I can do is I can do a discount or a credit. Click on that button, and it's going to bring up a new window for me. Drag it over here. And I'm going to enter a discount of 3 cents. My discount account, I have a discount income, or I might have a discount expense account. I'm just going to right now put it in my discount income, and I can give it a class also if you're doing class tracking. In this case, I'm just going to put it to overhead. If done, it shows me the amount of the discount, and I'm going to save that. Now you can see in my accounts receivable, that's all cleaned up. Well, here I've got a zero balance for through Gregory. Well, I don't want that zero balance there. I want to clean up my report. Well, what happened there is maybe my accountant did give me a journal entry. I put in the customer name, and now it's sitting out there with a zero balance due, which is correct, but I want that zero to go off my list. So again, if I go into customers, receive payments, bring up that customer name, it's going to show me that I've got unused credits for that customer. And again, my payment amount is going to be zero. I'm just going to click on this line item. If I put a check mark here, it's going to give me a little nasty window that says you have to enter an amount received. QuickBooks that's automatically calculated. I'm just going to say no because I don't want to put a check mark there. I'm just going to click on the number or the date. Then I can apply credits here. I think this is new in 2019 that had this button this year. Otherwise, I can again click on my discounts and credits button. And QuickBooks is going to know that there was a journal entry or some kind of credit that got applied to this customer. So I'm going to check that. I'm going to use that credit. Click Done. I'm going to show my credits out there and click Save. And now they're off my AR report. That's another way you can clean them up. If you have negative amounts out there, what you can also do is create a new item and do an invoice for that negative amount. In my item list, I'm going to just set up a new item. It's going to be another charge, and maybe I'll just call it cleanup. Cleanup cents. Oops, I can spell. I'm going to make that non-taxable, and maybe I'm just going to put that to my miscellaneous income account. So if you have a negative amount, I'm not sure if I have any negatives out here, example, but if you have a negative amount, what you could do is create an invoice for that negative amount. Just pick somebody here to just pick the cleanup item and say it's 2 cents negative out there. Maybe they overpaid you by 2 cents. And I'm just going to invoice them for the 2 cents. And then what QuickBooks will do is it'll tell me, do I want to, here. Then I can apply the credit, that 2 cent credit right here to that invoice. Another way to clean up your accounts receivable, if you do have bad debts, if one thing you want to keep in mind, if you do have bad debts, you need to think to yourself, do I charge sales tax? Is some of that bad debt, does some of that apply to sales tax? If I look at David Hughes and look at his invoice, just say something happened and I know I'm not going to get paid from him. I can see that, let's see, this one doesn't have, find one that has sales tax. Okay. I'm looking at Erica Patel, residential job, has sales tax associated with it. Right now she's got a balance due of $1,597.44. Let's say I'm going to write some of that off. So you're going to need to know how much of that you need to write off is subject to sales tax. Well, it looks like she gave me a down payment of $1,500. And of that we applied $950. See, some of the items are taxable and some of them are non-taxable. So let's just say the installation was not taxable. This was taxable. She gave me a down payment. So let's say the whole thing I'm going to write off as non-taxable, and I'm going to keep the $950 as her deposit that she gave me. So what you're going to want to do is when you're going to want to create a credit memo. When you create that credit memo, what you're going to want to do is set up a new item for bad debt. And let's see if I have one out here. I don't. So I'm going to create a new item. It's going to be another charge. I'm going to call it bad debt. Description, bad debt. I'm going to make it non-taxable. And the account I'm going to use is my bad debt expense. So when I create my credit memo, because let's say maybe I ordered the supplies, I never delivered them to her, I've still got them in my yard, so I don't want to affect my inventory. I just want to affect the invoice. So I'm going to use my item for bad debt. And let's say they don't have the invoice up in front of me. I'm just going to say $950 of this was for non-taxable work. And then I've got $1,300 of that is taxable. What this does is when you're doing your sales tax, let's say I invoiced her 2 months ago. In the state of Wisconsin, your sales tax is due when you invoice the customer. So when you're invoicing the customer, you're remitting that sales tax to the state at that point in time. If you're not actually going to receive that money from the customer, instead of going back and deleting that invoice, what you want to do is you want to be able to recoup the sales tax you paid in on that invoice. So you want to do your credit memo as a current date, because back in, say, October, I invoiced her. In November, when I did my sales tax return, I paid in the sales tax for that invoice. But now in December, I know she's not going to pay me, so I want to recoup the sales tax that I paid in. So that's why I'm going to do a bad debt in the current month as a credit memo. And when I do my sales tax return, it's going to decrease the sales tax I owe by this $1,300. It's going to reduce my sales by $1,300, my taxable sales, and it's going to reduce my sales tax owed by the $107.25. I'll just show you a little, show you the full impact of that. So I'm going to issue this credit memo. Just going to save it, and I'm going to look at my sales tax liability report for the month of December. So when I'm looking at my taxable sales, I'm just going to double click on that, and we should be able to see my credit memo. See how it reduces my taxable sales by that $1,300? And tax collected, it's going to also reduce that by the credit memo amount. It was $2,700 when I issued that credit memo. It went down to $2,600. So that's how you're going to recoup that sales tax. So when you're working with that debt, you want to make sure you know which portion of that invoice is associated with a taxable item versus a non-taxable item. I hope that answers the question. Let's see if I have any other questions or chats right now. Looks like I do. Does anybody have questions so far? I'll let you unmute your phones and ask any questions. Or am I going along pretty good? Okay, I'm not hearing anything, so let's see. Oh, I did get a question from the stage. Do you apply to the invoice then? When I did the credit memo and saved it, I did get a pop-up window that said, do I want to apply it to the invoice? And actually, I'll just do a different credit memo so I can show you that.
Yeah.
I'm going to look at Mike, do a credit memo for Mike. And I'm going to do a bad debt for $180. When I save this, I'll bring the window over. It's going to say, what do I want to do with the credit? Retain it, give a refund, or apply it to an invoice. As my information comes over on my right-hand side here. You can see I've got there should be an invoice out here. Otherwise, I can look at my AR summary. But he does have an open balance of $180. Oh, hang on a second. But you know what I didn't do? He has a job associated with this. So I should put that to the 330 Main Street job. Okay, so did I change that or didn't I add another one? Okay, so now it's going to give me my information on 330 Main Street. So I've got an open balance of $180. So when I save this, again, it's going to ask me, do I want to apply it to an invoice? And I can say yes, click OK, and it's going to give me a list of open invoices to apply it to. And I can pick and choose which ones. And click Done. And save, and now he should be off of my accounts receivable. I can always look to see what happened to that customer. Let's see. I'm going into the Customer Center. And if I look at Mike's job, I can see I issued a credit memo for $180. If I want to see which invoice I applied that to, I go to Reports, Transaction History. It'll give me everything that's tied to this credit memo. So I can look at this invoice, go to the invoice, and it'll show me which invoice that credit memo was applied to. And again, that's from the credit memo window, just Reports and Transaction History. Same with deposits and things like that. You can always go to the Transaction History and find out which transaction is all tied in with the transaction you have on your window. See, I'll go on to the next question. How do I template an invoice that you send monthly? Good question. So if you always send the same invoice to a specific customer, I'm just going to change my template right here. So say you send the same invoice to 20 different customers every month. You can do one of two things. Let's say I do some pest control. I do a monthly pest control for 10 of my clients, and I charge them $65 a month. I'm going to do an invoice without a customer job. I'm going to memorize that invoice. What it's going to do is it's going to say, okay, what do you want to do with this memorized transaction? I'm going to say pest control, monthly invoice. I can have it remind me, automate the transaction, or add to a group. I'm going to say, let's see, add to my reminders list. I want it to remind me monthly. And the next time it's going to remind me is, say, on January 15th of 2023. So when you open your company file, if you've got your reminders turned on, QuickBooks is going to show you a list of your reminders. And then I'm going to say, okay. So now this invoice is memorized. So now what I can do is I'm not saving that transaction, but when I go into my list, I have a memorized transaction list. Here's all my memorized transactions. And I want to look for my invoice of a memorized transaction that says Pest Control Monthly Invoice. So what I can do is I can just double click on it. It's telling me that it's 30 days in the future. I'm going to say okay. And then I'm going to put in my customer name. I'm going to invoice Adam, $65, save and close. And I'm going to go back, double click. memorize transaction for my other customer. Let's say DJ's Computers. Send it to them. So that's one way you can do it. Another way you can do it, which I found much easier, is under your customers, you can create batch invoices. And if you're always invoicing for the same dollar amount, this works really nice. So by creating batch invoices, it's going to tell me batch invoicing uses individual customer information. You want to set up you want to make sure you have your customer information set up correctly. So what it's going to let me do is it's going to let me batch my invoices into a billing group. So I'm going to set up a billing group called Pest Control. Maybe you have different levels of pest control. So I'm going to say Pest Control at $65. And I'm going to add all my customers to this list. Maybe these are all my business customers that I charge $65 a month for. I'm going to save this group. And then let's say I've got another group. And I'm going to say Pest Control for maybe $50. Maybe that's what I bill my residential customers because it's a smaller area. And I'm going to put in my residential customers that I have on a $50 basis. I'm going to save that group. So when you're ready to invoice, I'm going to invoice my pest control group. Click Next. Give me the date of the invoice. I'm going to date them, say November 1st. My item code is going to be pest control. Price each, $65. If it's taxable or non-taxable. I'm going to click Next. And it creates the batch. It wants me to verify that yes, I want to create these invoices. Create invoices. And now I can either print them or email them, or I can leave them unmarked and send them later. I can mark them to print. And then I can print them. Or I can mark them to email and email them. So using batch invoices comes in really handy if you're doing a monthly charge for your customers. Or otherwise, again, if it's, you can always create a memorized invoice. Next question I got is barter transactions. I've actually been seeing more of these. So if you are bartering for goods and services, again, you want to be careful of your sales taxable items. But what you want to do with a barter transaction, I believe QuickBooks even has this in their help section. But in your chart of accounts, if you create a barter account as a bank account, is one way you can do it. Because you're going to have a customer and a vendor. So say I'm going to be doing some bartering with a vendor of mine. So I'm going to create an invoice to DJ's Computers. I do some work for them. Let's say the gardening services for $200. I do some pest control for $50. I took down a tree for $750. Okay. Wisconsin, this is a taxable service. These might be taxable too. I'd have to brush up on my sales taxes, but I'm pretty sure the weekly. I know for a fact tree removal is. I believe lawn care is also. Let's say I'm doing these. Make sure you tax and non-tax is correct because you do still have to collect the sales tax and pay it in. So I'm going to invoice DJ's Computers for $1,048. Now, let's say I'm going to buy a new computer, and DJ's Computers sells computers. So I went off and I bought a new computer, and DJ sent me a bill. And here's my invoice number. Sent me a bill for $1,000. Computer. Okay, so now I have an invoice out there, and I have a customer out there. That my customer owes me money, and I owe my vendor money. What I can do is I can go into Receive Payments from DJ's Computers, and here's the amount. It's going to say, okay, you know that bill that I owe you for $1,048? Just take that $1,000 off of it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, I'll do that. So I'm going to do a payment amount of $1,000. And in the reference number, I'm going to say barter for computer. Mark this as paid. So to make my deposit, well, I actually didn't receive cash. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mark this that I'm going to pay it, and I'm going to deposit that to my barter account. You have to make sure you change the deposit to and make it your barter account. Okay, so save that. Then I'm going to go and pay my bill to Computer Services by DJ. I'm going to change my checking account to my barter account. I'm going to pay that selected bill. Done. So now what's going to happen is when I look at my receivables, I'm going to see that I still owe some money to DJ's Computers because DJ's Computers still owes me some money. I only paid off $1,000 of that $1,048.75. I look at this invoice, it's going to show me that there's a payment applied of $1,000. And when I look at my accounts payable, I'm not going to see an invoice there because I completely paid that bill to him. And when I look at my barter account and my checking account, I'm going to see that I have a barter transaction in and out. Actually, I have two of them here, so I did some bartering prior for DJ's Computers. So that's how you would use a barter transaction. But with barter transactions, again, if you're invoicing a customer, you have to make sure you are also charging them the sales tax. It's a taxable service. I've got a question as to how do you get in the back of QuickBooks to adjust pricing? So when you're invoicing, what you're doing when you're invoicing is you are charging your customers for the different items you're selling. Well, these items is where your pricing comes into play. So to change the pricing of an item, there's a couple of different places you can go. First of all, your list. When you're setting up your inventory list, my garden lighting, right here is my cost and my sales price. Here's where you can change your sales price. QuickBooks uses the average costing to calculate the inventory value. So I'll just give you a little detail. When you're receiving inventory, I'm just going to do this via checks. And I'm going to receive some inventory from, say, ground equipment rental. I'm going to set up a new item just as a sample. I'm going to set this up as an inventory part. And I'm going to leave my cost 0. My income account, I'm just going to say it's going to be miscellaneous materials. I'm going to go to my inventory account when I purchase it. So I'm going to order 10 sample inventories at $5 a piece. I'm going to save a new. I'm going to order some more. And let's say my price went up. I'm going to order 10 more at $7.50 a piece. Well, because QuickBooks uses the average costing of inventory, when I look at my inventory report, QuickBooks is now going to tell me I have 20 sample inventory pieces on hand. It takes and averages my cost to $6.25. So it knows I spent $125 on those 20 items. It takes a $125 divided by the 20 on hand, which comes up with my average cost. You want to be very careful when purchasing inventory that you're using inventory properly. Because if I bought one piece of inventory at $10,000 and I bought another piece of inventory, that same item, at $1, it's going to really skew my accounting. And you're going to have some really crazy things going on in your financial statements. So just a little lesson on inventory. But to adjust your inventory pricing, again, you can just adjust that in your item list and say my cost is so much and my sale price is so much. Say I sell it for $10. So here's where you adjust your selling price. So you can go one by one through your item list. If you need to adjust that average cost, and when I'm looking at my inventory valuation, if I need to adjust this average cost, what you want to do is an inventory adjustment. So under inventory activities, adjust quantity and value on hand, you're going to want to do a value adjustment. Probably you're going to go to your cost of goods sold account, and I'm going to find my items for my one sample inventory. Let's say I took over the position from somebody else and this value is totally wrong. It should be $150 or $1,050. So it's going to do a value adjustment. So that's how you would need to be careful with using inventory. But if you need to adjust a lot of your inventory items, I'll show you a little trick for that. Under your list, there is an option for Add, Edit Multiple List Entries. And you can do this with customers, with vendors, with service items, inventory parts, non-inventory parts. If you're in the higher version of QuickBooks, inventory assemblies. So let's say I'm going to do inventory parts. And it's going to ask me my different accounts. I can customize these columns and add or delete different things to these columns. Let's just say I want to adjust my sales price for all my inventory parts. $10 for that item. I want my sales price for this item to be $7.50. Maybe this should be 30 cents. 20 cents. I had a big price increase, so I can adjust all my sales prices right on this screen. And again, that's just under lists, add, edit multiple list entries. And click save when you're done. And QuickBooks is going to tell me that 4 inventory item records have been saved. And now when I go back into my inventory, if I look at the irrigation hose, my new sales price is $7.50. So you would change your pricing, your customer pricing on the back end by your inventory list. Let's see, another question is, how do I adjust inventory amounts for spoilage and shrinkage? In that case, what you would do is an inventory adjustment. So you can, and I'll just go into inventory activities here. And I'm going to adjust my quantity or value. So I want to do maybe quantity and value adjustment. I'm going to select my items. Let's say maybe I had some theft or some spoilage. I'm going to adjust these items. So if my new quantity on hand for my garden lighting is now only 99, I'm going to say -2 and a new value. So let's say I still have 19 bags of soil and maybe say it's not really worth what it was worth before. So I still have 19 of them, but maybe now they're only worth, instead of $100, they're only worth $75. So I can change my value right here by choosing my adjustment type being quantity and value if you've got spoilage. Still have 19 on hand, but they're not worth as much. So what that'll do is it'll just adjust my value on hand. When I save and close, it's going to give me a new inventory cost for that soil. I don't have any on hand actually. Okay, what did I do there? So it gave me a value difference of $25.70. So when I look at my inventory adjustments, see I've got actually a negative quantity on hand because I've sold some since then, which is why it showed me 0 on the sheet. Let's see, I'll choose different date. There we go. It shows me my asset value now being $75. Again, if you're using inventory items, you need to be careful. Let's see. I got a question as to if you can group your customer into specific groups to run reports. Well, you sure can. So, when you set up a new customer, in the additional information tab, there is a customer type. You can add all the different types that you want to. I'm going to create a type of customer that is, let's see, I've got residential, and I'm going to say maybe I'm going to start doing some work in manufacturing. for manufacturing companies. So you can just add them on the go, whatever you want them to be. And again, if you've got your customers already set up, if you want to make sure that they all have a type, under lists, edit multiple list entries. Make sure all my customers have a type. Right now, here's my customer type. Well, I don't need all this other information in here. I just want to look at the type. So I can customize my columns by clicking the Customize button in the upper right-hand side. And I don't need to see their phone number, email. I just want to see their name and the type. I'm just going to remove a bunch of those columns. Now I can see my customers and the customer type. I can go down this list and make sure all my customers have a type associated with them. So here I'm missing one. So I can type my customer, residential. Maybe Dave Perry is manufacturing. Go down and make sure everybody has a type associated with them. And as you can see, Susie has different jobs set up. Why it's giving me many of them. So just make sure you've got customer types in, save changes. They tell me that those have been saved. And then what you can do when you're running reports, run sales by customer detail. So I'm in my sales reports. And here's my sales by customer detail. Everybody that's bought things from me in December. I'm going to customize the report. A lot you can do with these customize buttons. I'm going to filter it in the second tab. I'm going to filter it by customer type. I'm going to know my types from my drop-down. I want to see all my residential customers. Click OK. And here's all my sales by residential customers. This is a report I want to see all the time. I'm going to customize it. Give it a header. I'm going to change my report title so it says Sales by Customer Detail for Residential Customers. And I'm going to memorize it. I'm going to save it in my customer account group. Be OK. And anytime I want to see that report, I can go into Customer Reports, Memorized, Customers, and here's that report. I can just change my date range, and it'll give me information for that customer or that grouping of customers. I look at this for my other group. Again, I can just go to customer type, change my type to manufacturing. I should only have one here. For Dave Perry. So that's how you can run customers, and you can type them into a specific group. Another good question, we sometimes give out our products for donation. What is the best way to do this? Well, if you're going to give your products out for donation, what I would to do it the best way possible is I would do an inventory adjustment. You're not actually making a sale. Let me think here. Actually, you are kind of doing a sale. But because I'm trying to think how this works. Giving an item away, I've got to think about the sales tax implications. I don't think you need to collect sales tax on an item you're giving it away. Don't take me for hard on that. I that up and get back to you. But what I would do is an inventory adjustment, one way to do it anyway, and I am going to adjust the quantity. Let's say I'm going to give away some sprinkler heads to maybe an organization that is building houses for people, for low-income people. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to give away 10 sprinkler heads. So that means I'm going to have a quantity of 95. And instead of cost of goods sold, I can put this to charitable contributions. And what that'll do is it'll decrease my inventory value by $63.85. It'll adjust the quantity of my inventory, but it won't, normally I would be selling these sprinkler heads for my average cost per item is $6.39. Let's say I sold them for $10. I don't want to really do a sales receipt because then it's going to put a sales receipt in there. Or if I sell them for $10 an item, it's going to say I sold $100 worth of items. But in case that's not the point, I only gave them away at their cost. I didn't actually sell them at their sales price. So that's why I would do an inventory adjustment in that case, if it's an inventory item. If it's something that you don't keep on hand as inventory, what I would just do is if you just maybe have, give your accountant an inventory value at the end of the year, what happens is any amount that you give away for donations be adjusted in that inventory adjustment, or in that inventory adjustment journal entry that your accountant gives you at the end of the year. So it'll flow through one way or another on your profit and loss statement. I hope that makes sense. Let's see. Another question I got is, how do you process or manage accounts receivable aging? A lot of different ways you can manage your accounts receivable. Good report for accounts receivable aging is your collections report. I look at my collections report. I'm going to put my date out here a little bit farther. Here's my collections report. It gives me my contact name at company and their phone number. It tells me which invoices are still outstanding and the age of those invoices. So I can just get on the phone, call Adam Bradley at Adam's Candy Shop and say, okay, we need to talk about this invoice. It's over a year past due. So the collections report is a really good report to run. What I would also do at that same time is, under your customers, when I'm calling Adam's Candy Shop, I'm going to make a note. So you can see down here, I've got transactions, contacts, to-do, notes, and sent emails. I'm going to set up a note that says, I go to Manage Notes, I'm going to add a new note. And my notepad comes up. I'm going to say, here's my date stamp today. I called Adam regarding invoice number 123 over 1 year past due. He promised to pay $100 a month by the 15th. So that way I have a running track on what's going on. I know I called him. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to set up a to-do. I can do that right from this window. I'm going to say I need to do a task, a call, meeting, appointment. I'm going to do a task with my customers. I'm going to prioritize it. I'm This is going to be due by the 15th of October. And details, I'm going to say, did Adam pay $100? I'm going to say okay. And okay here. So what that does is it gives me a tracking device. And with my notes, I can print those notes. Gotta remember how to do it. Here we go. Under the to-dos, I can run reports on to-dos. If you want the system to remind you about the different notes and to-dos, I should say to-dos, in your company, there is a reminders list. And it will give you all of your reminders. If your reminders are not coming up on a daily basis and you want them to, again, you can go to Company and Reminders and bring this window up. It's going to tell me I've got 4 to-do notes. I can just click on the arrow and it'll give me all the information on those to-do notes. My overdue invoices. I've got set up my inventory to reorder currencies. All these to-do notes are out there. So this is a nice screen if you want to be able to just hop over here and see what's out there. If you want to set this up so it always pops up, there's the gear icon. I can open preferences. These are my preferences for my reminder window. And I can say, under my preferences, show the reminders list when I open my company file. When I come in the morning and I open my company file, this list will pop up right away, and that's in my preferences. And I can have the system show me which things I want it to remind me of. If I don't do inventory reordering, I can say don't remind me. Maybe somebody else takes care of inventory. So you can pick which things that you want it to remind you of. Say okay. And now it's not going to show me any inventory items. That's my reminders list. So if you're working with customers, I find it very helpful to be using these to-do notes and the notes. Because if you've got problems with collections, this is a really good way to track it. And you can say to Adam next month, well, I called you on 9/22. You told me that you were going to pay $100 by the 15th, and you haven't paid me yet. So then maybe it's time to get your attorney involved or something like that. So that's one way you can manage your accounts receivable aging. Okay, and I'm going to open it up again for questions. If you want to either type them in or maybe chat them to me or just unmute your phone. If I've got any questions here. Okay, I did get another question. How do I create a non-income account to use money that will be used for a purchase for items for a later project? So I believe what you're asking there is if you're receiving money ahead of time, say you're doing a big project and you require the customer to put 50% down. What you want to do with that is You're going to set up a new account, that is going to be a liability account. I have one set up here called down payment. You want to make sure your account type is other current liability. Okay? Then what you want to do is you want to create an item. That down payment. Make it another charge. Non-taxable. And the account that you're going to put that to is your down payment account. Or you could call it customer deposit, whatever you like. Okay, so when I invoice a customer for that down payment, I'm going to create the invoice. I'm going to invoice Christina for that down payment. I'm going to say 50% down payment required for a landscaping job. I'm going to say that amount is $1,000 that I require her to put down. Okay? Non-taxable. I'm going to receive that payment from Christina. And when I look at my chart of accounts, if I look at my income, go there, I'm not going to see that anywhere in my income. I'm going to see that $1,000 on my balance sheet. Down here in my balance sheet, I've got down payments. And here's that $1,000 down payment from Christina. There's some invoices here that looks like shouldn't be here, but my $1,000 is going to show up on my balance sheet. It's not going to show up on my income statement. Okay, so that's where you're showing your non-income. Then what's going to happen? I'm going to receive those payments and deposit that check like we normally would. And then once you're doing the job and you're ready to invoice her for the full amount of the job, go to Christina. And let's say you're going to invoice her for your landscaping and gardening. So you maybe put in a fountain for $250. And then you did tree removal for $1,000. And then you did some plants. Okay, so now I have a balance due of $2,023.63. Well, we know we already have a down payment out there for $1,000. I'm just going to put less down payment of $1,000. Oops, minus $1,000. You have to put the minus sign in. And now she only owes me $1,023.63. It's going to keep track of every item and all my inventory correctly. It's going to keep track of what I owe for tax, because it's going to know my taxable amount is going to be $1,900, or my sales amount is $1,950, and that's going to show on my income statement. $1,000 is going to come off of my balance sheet. And save that, and I'll show you the details. On my balance sheet, my down payments, I now have $1,000 that I received in and $1,000 that I applied to the invoice. And if I look at profit and loss, I'm going to see in my income, just 211.1. Here is the items that I invoiced Dina for, showing at the full amount. Which brings up another item I just thought of that I want to mention. If you're doing an invoice, let's say your customer called and says, well, I'm going to be in next week, and I would like certain lighting from you. They're $100 a piece, and I want 10 of them. I'm doing a project. Well, you don't want to invoice them right away. They said, but I'm not sure if the project's going to go through, so can you put this on hold for me? What you can do is you can invoice that customer, and then if you click on, I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to mark this invoice as pending. So under the Edit button on the top menu bar, I can choose Mark Invoice as pending, which means it will not post to my profit and loss. It will not post to my inventory. It will not take these 10 items out of inventory. But it will not go on as income. So say next week, Edward Blackwell comes in and said, okay, I want those 10 sprinkler heads. I can go to my customers, find my invoice, and say, okay. And then I'm just going to go back to Edit, mark the invoice as final, and then I'm going to change my date. I came in the next week, and that's when I actually made the sale. And I can actually print it off, the invoice out for him then. Let's see. A bunch of questions here. Can you print the notes? For some reason, I'm thinking you can, but off the top of my head, I'm not recalling how to do that. That's something that I can email the group, find out and email the group as if you can print the notes.
Debbie?
Yes.
I think when you edited the note, you could print at that point.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Oh, yep. When you're in the actual note, you can print it there. But I believe you have to do it within each note. Thank you very much. Is there a way to take out the print later out of the area where you print checks? Yes, when that has more a accounts payable, but when you're in accounts payable, here's where you uncheck the print later. It's on the top. Same with when you're in invoicing. If you are creating invoices, you can either say print later or email later, or if you're not going to print it at all, just make sure both of those are turned off. So if so the question was, with printing checks, you're going to pay for that item with a debit card. So that's how you would take out that print checks. You're going to pay it with a debit card. You just uncheck print later, and then you can just zero out the check number, and it'll let you save it that way. getting some non-accounts receivable questions, and we will come up with those at another roundtable. Or if you'd like, you can actually email me those questions directly, and either myself or Becky that I work with will be able to answer those questions. What I will do now is I will give you my contact information. So just give me 1 second. And here is my contact information if you have any questions. Got a little bigger so people can see it. That's my email address. I'm Debbie Denny, and my direct phone number is 920-237-4558. So if I didn't answer your questions or you have additional questions that you think of in the future, feel free to give me a shout out. Just to let you know, I will be out of the office starting this afternoon, and I won't be back in until next Thursday. I just want to let you know that. So if I don't get back to you, my coworker might. So don't be surprised if you do get a call yet, because I may be forwarding questions to her while I'm out of the office. But hopefully we will get all your questions that you answered. And I hope you enjoyed our first roundtable session. Again, if you do have some questions yet, please feel free. We have a few more minutes left. Or feel free to email me. Let's see, we do have another question. Matching invoices. Can we remove a customer name from the batch, cancel a batch, or change the information in the batch? Yes, you can. You are batching invoices, customers, and creating batch invoices. If I want to change my billing group, I can manage any group at any time. So if I want to take Edward Blackwell out of that group, I simply remove it and resave the group. Or if I want to put somebody back, some other people in that group, I just have to bring up the billing group, make my adds or removals, and resave the group. So it's very easy to do that. If you want to search, if you have a lot of customers and maybe you want to search by customer type or custom fields or company name, there's different ways to search. Maybe you can't search by customer type, but you can do different searches while you're in here. You have a lot of different customers and know you want to choose, but you're not finding them in the list fast enough because you have a billion customers. You can do always a look in, but you can always manage a billing group by adding or deleting. And if you want to change the billing group name, maybe you want to do $60, I just click on Manage Group, and I can just change this from 65 to 60 and save it, and it will change that group name. Billing groups come in really handy. If you want to cancel a batch, make sure you don't press to create the invoices. And if you have clicked to create the invoices, what you can do is you can just go back in and delete those invoices by going to the previous one and edit, delete, or the shortcut is Control-D on your keyboard. Or you can delete them from this button here. Just double check before you hit the create invoices if you are doing a huge batch. If there's just one or two in that batch that you thought, oh, I forgot to take that out, you can just go to those specific customers, the customer center, and delete those at that time. So if I accidentally put him in a batch and he wasn't supposed to be, I can just find that invoice and delete that invoice. Another one, how do I clear deposits that have already been done but still appear in the record deposit window? Well, what happened there is that probably depends on exactly what the situation was on how it got reported the first time. So if somebody went in and recorded a deposit, people I've got out there under my payment. Adam's Candy Shop for $40. Okay, let's say somebody came in and under this deposit, they just went in and recognized the revenue, put in Adam's Candy Shop for $40. And received from Adam's Candy Shop. Let's say they just recorded this deposit like that. I'm changing this deposit, I re-recorded it. Well, you know, $40 payment is sitting out there in payments to deposit. So what I can do is use this deposit, click OK, put it in here, and then remove this row that has it under the wrong place. Delete that line. Now my deposit stays the same and I have it cleared out of my undeposited funds. You don't want to go back and do this for prior months or prior years. You only want to do this currently. So if it is an issue that took place in a prior month or prior year, then you're going to have some unscrambling to do and figure out exactly what happened, if it went into a deposit, say into an income account. What you could do is put that payment in as undeposited funds, and if you know what income account that hit, you could go down and choose that income account. So I revert this back. And let's just say, do a different deposit. Okay, so let's say this deposit. I know that in my undeposited funds, this $40 went in, and it went in last year, and it was coded to design services for Adam's Candy Shop. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say today, I doubled, it's a duplicate entry. Say 12/13 of 2021, put it in correctly. And I'm going to say minus $40. I take that money out of income that I had previously recognized because it's been recognized twice. My deposit's going to stay the same. I'm fixing my income account and then putting it to the undeposited funds where it should have gone in the first place. Okay. Okay, now I've got another question. When we were looking at the group, how much was received from one group of customers versus another group of customers? And that's looking at the cash receipts.
Deb's
So let's see. That one I might need to get back to you on. I think we're running a little over on time.
Send it to the only one that makes copies of anybody on this side of town.
Deposit detail. And I can customize the report.
So see if there's somebody on this side of town.
By customer type.
This copy, in a full scale.
Customers. 36. And here's where I can see what was received from all my commercial customers. It's from the deposit detail report.
9-1 that was sent to
I'm
you.
getting some feedback. If who's ever talking could mute their phone.
Okay.
But this does not give me a grand
This one I
total
want
at
to
the
make
bottom.
sure of is that, see, he doesn't have a scale on here. He doesn't have any
So,
dimensions to double check it. Well, this one we could. See what I'm saying? That would
whatever.
work. What you do is if
That one I
anything
might have to
you
get back
think
to
is
you
big,
on.
then you double check to make sure that does. Use your 1/8" scale.
You
That's
have
what it
your
says.
information on
And then
that.
you lay it on there, make sure that 1/8" is measured
Nancy wants to know
7.6.
what's
If
the
it doesn't,
difference
something's out of
between
whack.
voiding a
The only other thing we
invoice
could
and
do
deleting it.
is have them do
The difference is
2
that
pages.
deleting the invoice
2
will
pages.
totally take it. Excuse me,
Anyway,
getting
send
feedback
this page and this page, and we want
to
full
your
size.
phone. The difference between deleting and voiding still gives you the opportunity to see what the details in that invoice were originally, where if you delete it, it totally takes it out of the system. Although I shouldn't say totally, because in your reports, there is a report that is a voided, deleted transaction summary or detail. So it will show you what's been voided or deleted. So if you do need that history, you can get back to it. But it'll take it totally out of that customer information if you delete it. Okay. And I think that is all of the questions that I have in here. And if you come up with any more, again, feel free to contact me and I will get back to you. And I will get back to you on the grouping of the deposits and how we can get that into a report. So I want to thank you all for joining me and look forward to our next one that's coming up, which I'm not sure of a date or time or subject yet, but it will be in our emails. So keep reading our emails, and if you have any questions, give me a call. Thanks for your time today. Have a great day.